Hi, everybody. So I am Facebook Living from my personal page, which is pretty rare. I don't really do that. I either Facebook Live within the Yin and Yang mom community, my mommy mental health community, or I talk to my spiritual community, and I talk on my Reiki for my Reiki business on that business page. But I usually don't speak too much anymore on my personal page. So I just wanted to share this for multiple reasons. Number one, because I'm really proud of myself. And when you are proud of yourself and when you love yourself, it's okay to put it out into the world. You deserve it. All of you. You do good things every day, right? Every one of you does good things every day. And so often we don't give ourselves that pat on the back, or we keep it all inside. And it's really okay to brag about yourself once in a while. So I'm giving myself a little pat on the back. I went to Bergen Regional Hospital, which is now Bergen Newbridge Regional Hospital. It's the fourth largest publicly owned hospital in the country, and it is a psychiatric hospital. They don't only deal with mental health, but a lot of it is mental health. They deal with severe mental illness, schizophrenia, bipolar disorders. They deal with addiction, all sorts of addiction, suicidal ideation. They also deal with dementia, the elderly, hospice. Hi, Tammy. I was just at the hospital. And I really had a full circle moment today because a lot of you guys know that 8.5 years ago, I went through a really tough time in my life. And while how I ended up in the hospital is not the best story in the world, it's pretty interesting. But I ended up there for a reason. And I am really grateful to the staff and the nurses there that take care of the patients that need them. And patients, I was just talking to somebody today after I did my presentation. I went in there to present on intuitive wellness. And I went in there because obviously I opened my Reiki business like a month ago, but my talk wasn't about me and my Reiki business. It was about how mind, body, soul balance is really important. And I went in there to talk about the energy part of it because the nurses and the staff there, they're all empaths, and their environment, all that energy that they are in on a daily basis, I went in there to talk to them and make sense out of how energy can affect you physically and emotionally, and give them some techniques that they can actually use on themselves within the hospital while they're on duty, and then also how they can separate work from when they go home. So that's what I went in there to talk to them about. And it was such an honor because I was telling this story, and I've been meaning to get on Facebook Live and talk about my experience in going back there, to be able to go back and be in service to those people that helped me all those years ago. And I don't know why, but I just didn't do it. And then today I did it, and it was great. And I met some great people, and I was like, I really need to get on and talk about this because there's such a stigma still in 2019 behind mental illness. And there are so many degrees of mental illness. There's severe mental illness. And there's, just having the blues, but it's still mental illness. So you can, there's one extreme all the way to the other. And in talking to somebody today, they were even telling me that people don't realize, there's children there are children that their staff there are supporting and helping. And when I spent the time that I spent there, I talked about how it was such a life-changing experience for me because number one, you go in there and you realize that everybody has a story. People are struggling, people are hurting, right? And it's a pretty common story, but they're there to get help. They're there to get help. They're normal like you and me. Right? They are normal like you and me. And we all deal with our struggles, our pain, our trauma in different ways, right? It manifests itself in different ways. So I met those people, those other patients, and I really connected and bonded with them. And my mental state and my mindset before I stayed in the hospital about mental illness completely changed. I was like, the majority of the rest of the population, right? Thinking that, oh my God, only a couple days before I ended up going to that hospital was I terrified that my ex-husband was going to lock me up and throw away the key. That mental illness facilities are for crazy people. Well, they're not for crazy people. They're for people who are struggling and they need help. So I connected with amazing people there, and their staff was amazing. So I spent a whole entire week there. And as I was getting out and I was leaving to go back into the real world, to go back into my reality, which still didn't look too hot, I was scared. I was so scared. I was crying when I was leaving. And all of the patients on my floor came and they supported me and they hugged me and they told me everything was going to be okay. The nursing staff hugged me, said, "You got this, girl. You're going to go." They all knew I had babies at home and they supported me all the way. And they were the only ones that actually told me and comforted me and said, "You know what? You got this. Everything's going to be okay." And you know what? It took almost a decade. But as I was finishing this presentation last night at like 1 a.m, I don't know how this really I didn't kind of correlate the two. But when I left there, I realized, number one, I'm no different than anybody else. We are no different than anybody else within those walls or outside those walls. And number two, I was like, look at those people, what they do every day. That is not easy. That's really hard. And I even thought about it. I was like, maybe I should go back to school and become a counselor. I've been tossing this idea around for years and years and years. How am I going to contribute to the mental health community? Which clearly you guys all know that I do. But I was like, should I become a nurse? What should I do? And I had these thoughts right after I had gotten out of the hospital. And as I was finishing my presentation last night, I thought, Renee, you did it. Like, you already did it. You are contributing. And I'm very excited because I have prayed for an opportunity like this, because even with my Reiki business and with the mommy mental health community, I knew that there was something bigger that I needed to do as far as going out and speaking about my experience with depression, or my experience with childhood abuse, with trauma, with divorce, with addiction, because I am a recovering bulimic since my 20s, and an addict is an addict. I'm a recovering addict. There were so many things I can talk about, how we need to talk about mental health and our children and what's going on nowadays, especially in this area. There were so many things I could talk about from a perspective that is real and authentic and people can understand. And I knew that eventually I would get that opportunity, and I prayed for it, and asked the universe to plop it in my lap. And then Rosemary, she reached out to me. She's been a part of my mom's group for 4 years. She knows my story. She read the book. She has been following me, and she reached out to me and asked me to do this. And I thought they were actually going to certify some of their nurses in Reiki, because there are hospitals that do that now. They have in-house Reiki therapists and services. So I thought she just wanted me to come and talk about that. And she said, "No, I actually want you to come and talk about how our nursing staff can be proactive about their own health and how they can protect their own energy and use alternative wellness, natural healing modalities to kind of, obviously help manage their own sort of stress, blockages, imbalances from the type of work they do." So I couldn't believe it. And I walked out of there today and I was like, oh my God, I did it. And I really, truly believe that the universe has my back and that I was meant to do this and the doors will open. So for me, I'm telling you this story because I want you guys to know, like, wherever you are in your life, and if you're feeling stuck or you feel like you have a different mission in life, don't ever give up. Don't ever give up, and pay attention. Listen to your intuition. Be patient. Ask for specific things from the universe. If you don't believe in God and you just believe in universal energy, whatever it is, don't ever give up, because I never knew if this was going to happen or not. And it did. And I'm so honored. Like, I have finally, after almost a decade, because it was really rough how I ended up in the hospital, how I got out, my journey from the hospital to now, it wasn't easy. And almost 10 years later, I now have sort of closure and validation for the things that I went through, the things that I learned. I can speak for other people, other moms, other women, other people who are dealing with addiction and mental illness. I can speak on their behalf because, again, nobody is different than anyone else. And we can all recover and we can all heal. And we all do that in our own way, but we all have the ability to do that. And we also, as for me, as being a mother, and many of you are parents, we have the opportunity to change the story and change the landscape when it comes to mental health and how we are raising our children and how we are talking about that and how we are normalizing it, stigmatizing it, and allowing them the room to feel, right? Because they're just human, to be able to arm them with tools and coping skills and life skills. But the funny thing is, a lot of times we don't even have those skills because we didn't necessarily get them from our parents. And that's nothing bad. Our parents aren't terrible people. But the reason I work with moms is so they can work on themselves. And when you work on yourself and you work on your own healing, and however that looks to you, whatever you've been through in your life, when you work on your own self-healing, that is going to radiate and emanate from you. And you're going to be able to pass that on to your children, right? Because you can't teach what you don't know, right? You know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So how do you figure that out? And it's all self-discovery. So if you're on that path, dig deep, and it's okay. Digging deep is not necessarily the most fun thing. Self-introspection is not necessarily the most painless way to find yourself or move yourself in the right direction or to be the perfect parent. And none of us are perfect parents. But when we really sit and look at ourselves, right, versus pointing the finger outward when it comes to the things that are ailing us and turning that finger inwards, it's not fun. It's not easy. It can be painful, but it can lead to fulfillment. It can lead you on the road of helping others. And not just our children, but other people. Because I have come into contact with so many people over the last 4 years. And I want to say every single person that I know, they have a purpose. And whatever it is, whatever line of work it is that they're in, they help people. Every person here that I'm looking at is probably helping people in one way or another. So take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Never give up. When you look in the past, try to pull what you need to pull out of it, the learning experiences, acknowledge the hurt, acknowledge the pain, acknowledge the icky stuff, but find the gratitude in it every day because it's in there somewhere. It's in there somewhere. Almost a decade ago, I was divorced. I had no money. I lost someone that I loved to suicide. I never thought I would recover, ever. And here I am today. I did it. I went back to that hospital. And I walked in the door and I got a visitor badge and nobody carted me off to a room, right? Because when I went in there, I got admitted. They put me in on suicide watch and I didn't even realize that. And I went back there under different circumstances and it was just a defining, again, life-changing moment for me. So I really wanted to share that because I'm sure you guys have seen my post over the last couple of days that I was doing this. And the only reason I'm talking about it is not, again, yes, pat on the back to myself, and I'm really proud of myself, but I'm talking to you about it because mental health and the stigma behind it, we need to talk more about it. We need to normalize it so that we can help each other. When you raise your hand, like I did 8.5 years ago, and I said, I'm not feeling well, something's wrong, these are the reasons behind it, and the people that were supposed to care about me or care about my children didn't step to the plate and help. Instead, I ended up in the hospital, which is part of my journey, and I'm not mad about it. But if we can raise our hands and say, I don't feel good, I'm depressed, I have anxiety, I'm having dark thoughts in my head. For us as a community, loved ones, friends, we need to be able to say, okay, that's okay. And acknowledge it and validate it and say, what can I do to help you? Some people, need medication. We all should go to psychotherapy, right? We should all have a psychotherapist. To the extremes of having to be hospitalized? Not necessarily. If I had had the support that I needed back then, I might not have needed to go to the hospital, right? But it was part of my journey. But if somebody raises their hand and says, I need help, we need to be able to normalize that and say, it's okay. We need to say it's okay. Before I let you go, I want to just talk about something really quick that I saw, and this is really to not just to the mom community, but also any dads or guys that are watching this. Unfortunately, in New Jersey, we had a tragedy where a mom, unfortunately, killed her baby, her 5-day-old baby. Okay, just so you know, not justifying murder or violence in any way, shape, or form. According to the news story, she was sitting in the kitchen. Baby's 5 days old. Baby starts crying. And if I'm not getting all the facts straight, I apologize. I'm just kind of remembering what I read in the article. Dad's in the house. I don't know if there's any other kids in the house. Baby starts crying. Mom takes baby in a room. Baby shuts the door, I believe, from what I read, comes out, gets a knife, goes in, kills her child. Her 5-day-old child. The first thing that I thought of, and I wouldn't have thought this 10 years ago, I would have been like everybody else on the We Live in Bergen County post, crucifying the mom, telling her that she should die. My first reaction was something was obviously not right? What was she dealing with? Somebody who just is eating dinner and then takes their 5-day-old child, and kills her child. Something is seriously wrong. And it's probably something that she had been suffering with for a long time, because postpartum depression, all that anxiety you can have while you're pregnant. I actually went through it with my son. So I feel for that child. I feel for the family. I feel for that mother. But as I read the article, and the article was factual, I think, I got to the end of the article and it had the resource at the end. And it really got me. And I didn't know if I wanted to mention it because I know the journalists at this specific newspaper, and I didn't want to be negative about it. And I'm not being negative. And I sent a message, a letter out, a private message out to one of the journalists about it. But at the end of the article, the only resource, it said, if you cannot care for your child, and I'm paraphrasing, if you cannot care for your child, I love you too, Amy. If you cannot care for your child, there's a place that you can surrender your child. If you can't take care of your child, here, you can surrender it. Here's the number. You can do this in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. Within 28 to 30 days, no legal action will take place. La, 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 la. I saw it and I was a little horrified. And I'm going to tell you why I was a little horrified. Because now this woman who clearly cracked and snapped, and anybody who's watching this who totally disagrees with me, please, you are more than welcome to reach out to me and tell me your point of view for sure. Because again, it is the death of a child by the hand of the mother. So I get how serious and heinous and terrible that is. But now I talk to moms on a daily basis. I've talked to moms who have had nervous breakdowns and didn't even realize they had nervous breakdowns in the last however many decades of their life, right? That had been hospitalized, that didn't even realize that they were having an anxiety attack, a panic attack, a nervous breakdown. And there are moms within our community that talk about it, because we have our yin and yang mom group is a safe community to talk about the hard stuff of motherhood, right? The hard stuff, the stuff that nobody wants to talk about on any of the other moms' pages. And these moms will talk about how they're feeling and not sleeping and the anxiety and being afraid that they could just inadvertently, their children can get hurt because their reaction time, their cognitive functions aren't working, that how they think about possibly hurting themselves, right? So now someone does this who's clearly has some mental illness issues, and we're telling them, don't talk about it, right? It's not okay to have postpartum depression. If the mental illness part of it, you should give your child away. Go surrender your child. No legal action. Go give your child away. If you're suffering from a mental illness, if you're having terrible thoughts in your head, go give your child away. So I wanted to bring that up because this is part of the stigma. And I know this person who wrote this article, they probably didn't even realize what they were kind of putting out there. But instead, and maybe that was okay to put there, But there also needed to be another resource inserted into that article to say, if you are suffering from postpartum depression, if you are thinking about suicide, if you think that you're a danger to yourself or you're a danger to others, okay, there are resources out there. Here is an 800 number that you can call. It is 24/7. It is confidential. Those people on the ends of those phones, that's all they do. They take those calls all day long. People are in and out of hospitals every single day because of certain degrees of mental illness. So we should have added to that article, there is help. You're not a terrible person. Many moms who have these thoughts because their brain is shooting, the neural pathways in their brains are not operating correctly for multiple reasons. They're thinking, I can't tell anybody. I can't tell anybody how I'm feeling. And this is not just moms, for anybody. I cannot tell anybody how I'm feeling. Okay, we're in 2019, almost 10 years after what I went through. You think there would be some change. I can't tell anybody because people are going to think I'm crazy. And they're going to tell me I'm not a fit mother or not a fit parent. So I got to keep this inside of myself, right? To the detriment of your own health and also to your children. And that is not something either that we should be teaching our children. We want to teach our kids at a very early age that if they are not feeling right, emotionally, physically, mentally, that they can raise their hand and they can say, I don't feel good, right? What can we do? What we can do to fix the situation? So as adults, the stigma is there as adults. So how many of us who are still living, behind that stigma, how are we really able to help our children in a time where they are constantly stressed out, right? Especially with social media and everything. The pressure to be perfect is 100 times worse for children and adults as it was 10 years ago. Thank you. I'm getting a lot of likes. Hi, everybody. How are you, Julia? Avivi. Thank you, Julia. So I'm sorry I went on and on and on about this, but it was something that I really felt like I was going to get on Facebook Live at some point on my personal page and really talk about, because a lot of people that are personally friends with me on Facebook have watched me over the last 10 years and have known my story. And some of you have actually witnessed what happened to me many, many years ago. And that's why I am a fierce advocate for mental health in general. The reason I focus on moms is because moms, they're the key, right? When it comes to families. And so many moms, they're the worst ones. And I mean that in a nice way, not in a negative, judgy way. We are the worst ones when it comes to self-care. And we have the power to change that. So thank you so much for listening to me today. I really, again, came full circle. I prayed for this opportunity. And not only did I get the opportunity, but I went back to the place where it all started. So the universe answered my prayers. I've come full circle. I've had closure, and I know this is going to open doors for me to be able to work with the hospital and hopefully open more doors where I can make more of a difference. And I hope that this inspires you. And if you ever want to reach out and want to work together on something, please, please, please let me know. And if you're struggling with something yourself, don't ever hesitate either to reach out to me privately, because I have an ear and I will always listen. And I really mean that. So have a great Wednesday, and I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.